Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree of Space Command, also Mr. Sci-Fi, also Marc Zicree, writer of Star Trek, Babylon 5, etc., 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 Deep Space Nine, you name it, you name it. You can go on IMDb, you can see what I've accomplished with my life. But here we are to talk a little bit more about Star Trek Discovery and the Orville, and also a little bit about Space Command. So I'll be brief because I'm things are busy. But I've watched the first 9 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, the first half of the first season, and I've also been watching the Orville. I've watched the first 7 episodes of the Orville. Haven't watched episodes 8, 9, and 10. It comes every week. My God, there's too much Orville. But what I've seen has been, of course, promising and good and of quality. And so, here, where to start? Here's the thing with Star Trek Discovery. Again, I've said before that depending on what kind of television you like, depending on what's meaningful to you, both shows can have merit. Both shows can be of use. If you're hanging on to what Star Trek has been, what Star Trek represents in terms of its traditions, Star Trek Discovery is very different than that. Much darker. Characters are much more at each other's throat. It's very hard to kind of gain affection for these characters. They're much more troubled souls in many, many, many ways. Much more irritable, irritating, etc. But I'm rooting for them, and I'm rooting for the show, and I'm glad it exists for all of its challenges. They're trying to push the envelope. They're trying to do something different, and I think a lot of the questions we have now about Star Trek Discovery will be answered as the show continues. I think they have a plan, and the visual effects are impressive. It's $8 to $10 million per episode. It's a talented cast, and but again, if you don't like a dark show, if you don't like a negative show, if you don't like a problematical show, that Star Trek Discovery is not for you. And also what it's saying about war, I have significant concerns about that. I don't think so far I haven't seen a lot of insight. I've just kind of seen, okay, these guys are the enemy, and whether or not they've got a heart, whether or not their position is valid, they eat people. Come on, I mean, give it a rest. And those are going to be bad guys no matter what you do with them. And they torture people, they eat people. I mean, America tortures people now. Unfortunately, I wish we didn't. I wish America did not stand for that. When I was growing up, the guys who were torturing were the Nazis. They were the bad guys. It wasn't America, and I don't think we should be torturing people. That's my opinion. You may disagree. We could talk a lot about that. We're not going to go down that road. But Star Trek Discovery is, and I'm not. But again, the last 2 episodes. Let's talk about them for a moment. Okay, they have this goofy living planet. They do sort of this gag where the plant takes over. Doug Jones, and he's now talking about peace and he says no, he wasn't taken over. He really believed it. Okay, fine. But Star Trek did that long ago. They had the plant that shot spores, and Spock falls in love, and Kirk calls him the dog-faced boy, and all this stuff, and gets beaten to a pulp, and cures Spock, and they save the planet, and all this. This is all stuff from 50 years ago that we've seen before and better. In the Living Planet, Ray Bradbury wrote that story way back when. And again, I'm not saying that we can't have riffs from other stories. I mean, that's what science fiction is. We all work in the science fiction tradition, but they again send Michael and one other guy to the Klingon ship yet again. It's like they don't have like raiding parties. The ship has hundreds of people. They can't send like a bunch of folks. No, they always send like 1 or 2 people, and they get their asses kicked, and shit happens, and very wacky. And also the other wacky part is they go to that ship, and the guy immediately has PTSD, and he freaks out. And why wasn't he freaking out earlier when the captain was with him on the Klingon ship, and they managed to mount an escape, and he was very effective at that point. And okay, sees the girl, and that freaks him out. Gee, I don't know. It's just again, it might happen in the real world, but you lose sympathy for the character, because when the chips are down, he folds, and he rallies a little bit, but still, it's just not creating characters that you're rooting for, that you're engaged in, that you want to take the journey with. And I'm still watching the show. I'm still trying to find my way through it. I like the character of Tilly, though she's kind of gone to the back row now. She's not doing much now. I'm sure they'll give her more to do. Ultimately, she'll become a captain, because Anthony Rapp clearly is having some kind of time ripple effect where he sees her as the captain in the future. Anthony Rapp is interesting, but again, and they're making him a little warmer, but still, he's an edgy kind of character, but not in a good way necessarily. And this whole space fungus thing and the science, the physics is really pretty wacky. But meantime, the Orville. Again, I haven't watched the last three shows. I will catch up. But the Orville is trying to do meaningful shows. But there's still a quality of it from the '90s, even when they do something that's commenting on now, like Facebook and Twitter, which that show they did recently, which was very good. It's still got a quality from the visuals, from everything about it. There's still a quality of it being a 1990s show. It still feels a little hokey in its way. We'll see what happens. And they still are mired to kind of jokes like, well, look, that looks like a screensaver when they're in the middle of this hellacious storm. Would people really say that in the real world? No. And so they're still kind of a little bit hampered by the kind of humor that sold the show probably to the executives. So bottom and finally we get to Space Command. Now we have a Space Command Kickstarter campaign going. Space Command Redemption. If you can pledge, that'd be great. I've been posting on Mr. Sci-Fi trailers from Space Command. We're about to release a 6-minute trailer of Space Command Season 1. I shot the first 2 hours. We're on post on that. Shot 35 minutes of the second 2 hours. Shot the opening scene of the third 2 hour story. I've written the first 8 hours, outlined hours 9 through 12, an entire season. It stars Doug Jones, who's in Star Trek Discovery and The Shape of Water. You can go on some of the other Mr. Sci-Fi YouTube channel videos. You can see what we're doing with Space Command. I personally think that if you like Star Trek and you're looking for a new show that has that tradition, you like Space Command. For me, Space Command falls right between Discovery on the dark end, and Orville on a slightly too light end. But that'll be up to you to decide. But definitely check it out. But for now, I'd say Orville is kind of winning the Star Trek Discovery Orville battle. But still, Star Trek Discovery has a more serious intent. Uh, Again, I'm really glad both shows are on the air. As I've said before, I think that we are the winners in terms of having both of these shows on the air, and it is definitely a time of a lot of really promising science fiction. Whether you're looking at you know, Blade Runner 2049 or the Mad Max Fury Road from last year. I think there's a lot of great stuff being done and a lot of very talented people doing it. So that's it for now. Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi. Subscribe to the Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi channel. There's going to be a lot coming down the pike over the next few months, including we'll be releasing the first 35 minutes of Space Command, of the 2 hour Space Command pilot, in the next month or two. So I think we'll first send that to our backers and our investors, but then we're going to put it out more broadly, and you'll see exactly what we've been talking about and exactly what we've been doing. So thanks very much. Talk to you again really soon. Bye-bye, guys.